Welcome to our 2023 Graduation Rate Indicator presentation from the Accountability, Development, and Policy Analysis Unit at the California Department of Education. My name is Betty Miura, and I will be co-presenting with Michael Ishimoto. Today's session will be covering a short top-level review of the dashboard and a more in-depth review of the graduation rate indicator. For the 2023 dashboard, the California Department of Education is releasing a series of on-demand sessions. These sessions are short, accessible videos which can be accessed at any time and will cover each of the state indicators in more detail, plus some other accountability information. So today's agenda includes an overview of the California School Dashboard, which we will refer to as the dashboard from here on out. Next, we will move on to general rules about the dashboard. Then we will cover all things graduation rate, followed by the differences between DataQuest and the dashboard, a few frequently asked questions, and finally, how to go about contacting or reaching us with any and all of your dashboard questions. So first, we will start off with an overview of the dashboard. The California School Dashboard is an online tool designed to help communities across the state access important information about students in kindergarten through grade 12. The dashboard reports how districts and schools are performing on multiple state and local indicators that make up California's accountability system. A big question that may be on your mind is, what can I expect from the 2023 dashboard? Thankfully, 2022 was a big year of changes, and 2023 will be different, but most of it will be pretty familiar. The dashboard will still report local indicators and state indicators. The big change will be that state indicators return to colors. The dashboard displays performance on 6 state indicators. They are academic, which includes measures for both English language arts and literacy, or ELA, and mathematics, English learner progress, chronic absenteeism, graduation rate, suspension rate, and finally, the college and career indicator, which is reported as status only on the 2023 dashboard. But the question is, how do these indicators get a color? The measurement of performance for LEAs, schools, and student groups on the dashboard is done by looking at 2 years of data. Current year data equals status. A comparison between current and prior year's data equals change. It's the combination of status and change that determines color performance on the dashboard. The colors range from red, which represents the lowest performance, to orange, yellow, green, and then to blue, which represents the highest performance. Now I would like to pass it to Michael.
Thank you, Betty. Now we will go through the details of the graduation rate indicator, which represents the percent of students who graduated high school with a regular high school diploma. Now, the graduation rate indicator on the dashboard uses a combined 4- and 5-year graduation rate. The rate includes students who graduated in 4 years as part of the most current graduation class, and it also includes students who graduated in 5 years as a part of the graduating class from the prior year. The inclusion of the 5th-year graduates was approved by the State Board of Education to provide schools the opportunity to demonstrate progress and success with students who may need additional time to earn a regular high school diploma. The exact formula of the combined 4- and 5-year rate, along with an example, is available for you in the note-taking guide. Now that we know the dashboard uses a combined 4- and 5-year graduation rate, which students then are counted in the graduation rate? Well, only students included in a cohort are included in the rate. So how do students get into a cohort? When students first enroll in grade 9, they become a part of a graduating class and are included in the denominator of the cohort. Now, this class of students may also include those who transfer in later, such as in grade 10, 11, or 12. So as mentioned earlier, only students who receive a standard high school diploma are counted as graduates. Keep in mind that students who receive a GED or a high school equivalency certificate or receive a special education certificate of completion are not considered as graduates by the U.S. Department of Education. Therefore, only students who receive a standard high school diploma are counted in the numerator of the graduation rate. Students who graduate high school early, in less than 4 years, are counted in the original cohort in which they began. The associated note-taking guide includes an example of this that may be helpful for you. Now, when students transfer between schools during their time in high school, the question arises as to which school will be held accountable on the dashboard. The answer is that the last school where the student is enrolled at is held accountable for the student's graduation outcomes. Now I would like to pass it back to Betty.
Thank you, Michael. So how will the graduation rate indicator appear on the dashboard this year? Well, much like the other indicators, the card with the color is returning. This means it will have the colored banner across the top of the card, as well as the performance level or color in the form of the gauge with the color explicitly written out. In the example that you see here, the gauge is pointing to the color green. There is an option to select the all students group or compare it to the state student group results. Additionally, we see that the current year status is listed as 93.5% graduates. The card also indicates whether the status changed from the prior year, and it shows here that it increased by 2.1 percentage points. Finally, the equity report at the bottom of the card shows the number of students in each of the performance levels or colors for a particular school or LEA. Here we see that there are 0 student groups in red, 1 in orange, 0 in yellow, 7 in green, and 1 in blue. This top-level report can assist schools and LEAs to review any inequities that may be occurring within their student groups. Now, at the very bottom of the card, there is a link to view more details, which takes you to specific student group information and trends in data over time as available. Now, to determine a performance level or color for the graduation rate indicator and for all state indicators on the dashboard, a 5x5 table is used. The 5x5 table that you see here is the one for the graduation rate indicator. The top row represents change from the prior year. The change levels are declined significantly, declined, maintained, increased, and increased significantly. The first column shows status levels indicating performance in the most current year. Status levels include very high, high, medium, low, and very low. The intersection of status and change results are used to determine the final performance level or color for an LEA, school, and student group. Now, referring this 5x5 table, in order to receive a blue performance level, an LEA, school, or student group would need one of the following combinations: a very high status and a change level of either declined, maintained, increased, or increased significantly, or a high status and a change level of increased significantly. To receive a green performance level, an LEA, school, or student group would need a status of high with a change of maintained or increased, or a status of medium with a change of increased or increased significantly. To receive a yellow performance level, you would need status of high with a change of decline, or status of medium with a change of maintained, or status of low with a change of increased or increased significantly. For an orange performance level, you would need status of high with a change of decline significantly, or status of medium with a change of decline significantly or decline, or status of change with a change with the status of low with a change of declined or maintained. Finally, an LEA, school, or student group would receive a red performance level with a status of low and decline significantly, or a status of very low and a change levels of decline significantly, declined, maintained, increased, or increased significantly. This last red row is different from the other indicators and reflects the requirements under the federal Every Student Succeeds Act to identify high schools with a graduation rate of less than 68% for school support. Therefore, all LEAs and schools with a graduation rate below 68% are placed in the red performance level. So what happens when the count of students are small? To limit large swings in the change data that can be triggered by just a few students, the State Board of Education approved the application of a 3x5 colored table when the student population size is less than 150. For the graduation rate indicator, the 150 count is based on the number of students in the denominator of the combined 4 and 5 year graduation rate. As you can see from this 3x5 table, the two most outer change columns increase significantly and decline significantly, seen in the traditional 5x5, have been removed, leaving only declined, maintained, and increased. However, the same 5 status levels that we saw earlier in the 5x5 table are still utilized, and they are very high, high, medium, low, and very low. Therefore, to receive a blue performance level on the 3x5, an LEA school or student group would need a very high status and a change level of either declined, maintained, or increased. To receive a green, you need a status of high with a change of maintained or increased, or a status of medium with a change of increased. To receive a yellow performance level, you would need a status of high with a change of declined, or status of medium with a change of maintained, or status of low with a change of increased. For an orange performance level, you would need a combination of a status of medium with a change of decline, or a status of low with a change of declined or maintained. Finally, an LEA school or student group would receive a red performance level with a status level of very low and any of the change levels like we saw earlier with the 5x5. So here they are declined, maintained, and increased. So now for the changes. There are just a couple of changes since the dashboard was last published in 2022. First, while only status could be reported on the dashboard last year, this year, for 2023, performance levels or colors will be displayed. Back in 2019, the 3x5 methodology was applied for small schools to reduce the amount of volatility from year to year. With change being calculated this year for the graduation rate indicator, the 3x5 will once again be applied for LEAs, schools, and student groups with less than 150 students. So did you know that you can verify your 4-year graduation cohort rate before these data are extracted out for use for the dashboard? Specifically, LEAs can validate their 4-year cohort counts prior to the close of the CalPADS certification window by reviewing CalPADS Report 15.1 for summary review and CalPADS 15.2 to access the student level data. These reports are available all year round and can be reviewed throughout the CalPADS end of year certification window. The note-taking guide does contain a link to the 2022-23 handbook that details how you can access these CalPADS reports. As a reminder, the use of modified methods is no longer allowable due to the U.S. Department of Education's denial of California's waiver. Therefore, the Dashboard Alternative School Status, or DAS, 1-year graduation rate is no longer used for accountability for the graduation rate indicator. However, this waiver denial only affects the requirements under federal law. State law under California Education Code continues to permit the use of the DAS program and reporting of DAS separately for alternative schools. Therefore, the CDE will continue to report the DAS 1-year graduation rate for schools identified for DAS. This rate is reported on both the dashboard and the school dashboard additional reports for informational purposes. The associated note-taking guide contains further details on what resources are available to you for the DAS 1-year graduation rate. Now I would like to pass it back to Michael.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to cover some of the differences between the DataQuest and the dashboard for the graduation rate. Now, many schools and LEAs use both DataQuest and the dashboard to understand their data. While both report graduation rates, there are differences in the way the data are calculated and reported. First off, keep in mind that the graduation rate for DataQuest only reports the 4-year cohort, while the dashboard displays a combination of 4 and 5-year graduation rate. DataQuest also includes charter schools in their district authorizers reports. There are filters available to include or exclude from the authorizer reports. However, the dashboard always has charter schools excluded from their authorizers reports, since charter schools are considered LEAs for accountability purposes under the Local Control Funding Formula, or LCFF. One final difference between DataQuest and the dashboard is how students with disabilities are reported. On DataQuest, students with disabilities are reported at the district of attendance. On the dashboard, they are reported at the district of residence. This will be covered a little later, and your note-taking guide notes this rule. So now we are moving on to the frequently asked questions. These represent a compilation of the most common questions we receive that we thought would be helpful to review. So the first question is on early graduates. The question is, if there is a grade 11 student who is graduating this year, then when is this early graduate included in their graduation rate? Keep in mind that early graduates in grade 11 are included along with the rest of their class. Therefore, if a grade 11 student graduated this year, then the student will not be included in this year's graduation rate. The student will be included in next year's graduation rate along with the rest of the student's classmates in the cohort. The next question asks why students who completed a high school equivalency test are not counted as a graduate for the combined rate. The U.S. Department of Education requires that only students who receive a standard high school diploma are counted as graduates. This is why students who complete a GED, California High School Proficiency Examination, or any certificates that are not included in the numerator of the combined graduation rate. Next, we have a question on the DAS 1-year graduation rate and whether this rate is used for accountability. The answer is that it is not used for accountability. This means that it is not used for differentiated assistance determinations at the LEA level. It is also not used to determine schools for comprehensive support and improvement, or CSI, and additional targeted support and improvement, or ATSI. The combined 4- and 5-year graduation rate that is calculated for DAS schools is the rate that is used to determine support. Keep in mind, though, that the California Department of Education continues to report out the DAS 1-year graduation rate on both the dashboard as well as the school dashboard additional reports. Viewers are able to access the number of students in the numerator and denominator of the rate within these reports. The last question is, can I still update my graduation data for the dashboard even though the end-of-year certification window has closed? Once the CalPADS end-of-year window closes for the year, any data revisions made in CalPADS afterwards will not be incorporated into the dashboard. Therefore, we highly recommend that LEAs confirm their CalPADS data prior to the close of the end-of-year window. So this concludes our specific review for the graduation rate. If you need additional help, we provided some resources in the note-taking guide, such as the California Department of Education Graduation Rate Indicator webpage. This webpage will cover everything you need to know about the state indicator. It has links to flyers, cut scores, and anything else you might need. On that page, you will also find a link to the 2023 technical guide, where there is a specific mini guide on the graduation rate. We also have a school dashboard additional reports webpage where districts and schools can find graduation rate data that is more specific than the data found on the dashboard. For example, you can find both the number of and the percent of the students who are included in the combined 4- and 5-year rate, including the number of students who are counted in the denominator. This report is an easy way to compare results between schools or student groups. Now, I would like to pass it back to Betty to close out this session.
Thank you. Let's now walk you through some general rules about the dashboard. First, we want to clarify a rule about charter schools that is unique to the dashboard. As mentioned earlier, since charter schools are treated as LEAs under LCFF, their data are not included in their authoriser's dashboard report. This includes both direct and locally funded charters. Next, we want to review what the accountability N size thresholds are and how they will be displayed on the 2023 dashboard. If the N size is 30 or more students in the denominator, then the graduation rate is reported on the dashboard along with the status and change data. There is an option to select the student group or compare it to the state student group results. In the card seen here for the African American student group, the performance level or color is green with the gauge pointing to the green color. The card shows that 91% graduated in the current year and that the student group had increased 1.5 percentage points from the prior year. The number of students, or N size, is 332. If any LEA school or student group has 30 or more students in the denominator, they will be held accountable for differentiated assistance at the LEA level and comprehensive support and improvement, or CSI, additional targeted support and improvement, or ATSI, at the school level. Next, we'll review what it looks like when the N size is between 11 to 29 students in the denominator. For the 2 or more races card seen here, only status and change data are reported on the dashboard. There is an option to select the student group or compare it to the state student group results. Therefore, you see that 89.3% of the students graduated in the current year, and that the graduation rate declined by 6.4 percentage points compared to the prior year. The number of students, or N size, is 28. And because this is between 11 to 29 students, the card displays a no performance color with a grayed out gauge. For any reporting of 11 to 29 students in the denominator, the LEA school or student group is not held accountable for differentiated assistance at the LEA level and CSI and ATSI at the school level. Finally, if the N size is less than 11 students in the denominator, then no data are reported on the dashboard to protect students' privacy. There is an option to select the student group or compare it to the state student group results. Now, as you can see in this card for the American Indian student group, because there are 10 students, the card displays a no performance level with a grayed out gauge and no graduation data. Additionally, any LEA school or student group with less than 11 students in the denominator is not held accountable for differentiated assistance at the LEA level and CSI, ATSI at the school level. There are, however, N size threshold exceptions to the rules I just explained. They apply to the foster youth and homeless student groups, as their N size thresholds are different at the LEA and school levels. At the district or LEA, there must be 15 or more students in the denominator to be reported on the dashboard and held accountable. At the school level, there must be 30 or more students in the denominator to be reported on the dashboard and held accountable. For this exception, charter schools are treated as schools, not LEAs. Therefore, charter schools will need 30 or more students in the denominator for the foster youth and homeless student groups to be held accountable. And finally, the District of Special Education Accountability, or DSEA. The DSEA rule is applied to all available state indicators for students with disabilities who receive special education services at another district or county office of education. These students are sent back to the district of residence or DSEA and are included in the DSEA's dashboard. For example, the district where the student geographically resides is held accountable for the student's graduation outcome, and that data is included in the district of residence graduation rate indicator. Please note that this rule applies to LEAs only. All schools, including charter schools, are held accountable for all students with disabilities. This rule has been applied since 2017 for the academic indicators and the 2020 reporting of the graduation rate and college and career indicator data on the CDE School Dashboard Additional Reports website. It was applied for all indicators starting on the 2022 dashboard and will continue for the 2023 dashboard and beyond. For more information, refer to the District of Special Education Accountability Rule for Students with Disabilities flyer on the Dashboard Communication Toolkit webpage. If you have any questions about any of the information we covered, we are just an email away. Our email address is dashboard@cde.ca.gov. We also invite you to follow us on X, formerly Twitter, @CDE Dashboard. And that concludes this on-demand session. Thank you so much for tuning in.